Shabbat Shalom, L'chaim, L'chaim. This week's Torah portion is Mikeitz. If you remember from last week's Torah portion, Yosef was in prison with the Sar Mashkin, the butler, and the baker, and he interprets their dreams. And at the beginning of this week's Torah portion, Pharaoh has two bad dreams, one of seven unhealthy cows and healthy cows, and one of seven unhealthy ears of grain and healthy ones. And the butler says to Pharaoh, I made a mistake, I forgot to tell you. And they bring Yosef up, and he interprets the dreams from Pharaoh. And he says there are going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And Yosef is raised to the ranks of viceroy over Egypt, and he's given the responsibility of making sure that they have food during the 7 years of famine. And sure enough, he takes the right steps to make sure and ensure that they do have food during those times. And while the rest of the land is starting to go into famine, Yaakov, his father, sends Yosef's brothers, 10 of them, all down to Egypt to go get more food, where they encounter Yosef, not knowing that it's him. And there's this whole game, so to speak, where Yosef is not revealing himself to them, but he's really testing them to see their character. Have they changed in their ways? Have they done tshuva? And he sends them back, and they have to come back again, and it's a whole back and forth. Until the end, he says, the end of this week's Torah portion, he sends them home, and he says, you can go, but I'm going to retain Binyamin here. And what I wanted to focus on, it's really like a power-packed Torah portion, because there's so many different lessons we can learn about interpersonal relationships, very much so with our family, but also out in the world with friends. And what I was focused on was Yosef basically, he plays this game the whole time to test his brothers and see if they've done tshuva. And so one thing that I notice is that people sometimes ascribe their self-confidence or self-esteem to a certain attribute. So using myself as an example, growing up, my self-esteem really originated from my ability to run fast. I was such a good runner, and I felt like I was faster than everyone else, that I felt confident about myself. But when years later this was taken away from me, I realized that this is not who I am at all. And I lost a lot of self-confidence because it was all conditional on my ability to run fast. And the one thing that I want to focus on is that it doesn't have to just be a talent. It could be money, it could be power. And in this situation, we see that Yosef attains both of those things. He attains both money and power. And the whole time that his brothers come there, he could have immediately said to them, right at the very beginning, guys, it's me, it's Yosef. Look at what you did to me and look at where I am now. He could have thrown it in their face, but he didn't. Instead, he tested them to see if they had done tshuva. He focused on them. And once he saw that they had done tshuva, he says to them, guys, it's me, it's Yosef. Look at what God has done for us. And I was thinking about this idea and what it really means. And for me, I understand that money and power and, sometimes even talent can corrupt a person because it's very nefarious. It affects you in a very subliminal way. And one way we could see this is in self-confidence, that it starts to change your confidence as you get more money or more power. The one way that we can really fight back against this is by remembering that Hashem is the one that gave us this talent. Hashem is the one that gave us this confidence. And like any person who does tshuva, you realize that it's not just once. You have to remember it daily. You have to constantly be reminding yourself that Hashem is the one that gave you this. Because if you start to forget to remind yourself about this idea, it'll start to really affect you. You'll start to pin all your confidence on this talent or on the money that you have. Pinned all your self-esteem on the talent or the confidence or the power you have. And so the lesson that I'm really drawing from this week's Torah portion is to constantly remember the blessings that God gives us every day if possible, so as not to allow myself to become affected and to allow all the blessings I'm receiving become the hallmark of the individual I am. Shabbat Shalom, L'chaim, L'chaim.